Good evening, everyone. It's Gordon. Thank you for tuning in to tonight's live stream. And guess who's here? Candy the Wonder Pup, who shows up. If you've been on this channel before, you know my dog shows up at the start of every video. So without further ado, I'll take care of her. Shake a paw. Come shake a paw. Shake. Lay down. Speak. Okay. Show your pretty face. No one's watching. We'll see if anyone does. And if you do watch and you happen to be new to the stream and you happen to like what I have to say, injecting my voice into the public discourse, you're welcome to hit the like button, to subscribe. I'm getting up around, I'm in around somewhere around 975. Hopefully at some point in the days, weeks, months ahead, I'll hit 1,000. We'll see. Daniel Copeman has shown up. Salut mon ami de Montréal. Daniel is a Montrealer. I'm down in southeastern Ontario. Didn't have much to say tonight. I didn't do a stream yesterday. I decided to take the day off, so to speak. Just relaxed. Just normal day. And again, it seems we're in something of a holding pattern on the news front. It's just same old. We got COVID stories. We've got bird flu stories. We've got triple E stories. We've got, I'm missing one, monkeypox stories. You know, those seem to be the four on the health front that seem to be out there. The situation in Israel, which I think was the topic of my last video, and I'm still expecting things to blow up, but it appears that things are, at least for the moment, in something of a holding pattern. There has been some news out of Israel, and that was the recent release of, or rather the recent capture, or I don't know exactly how to frame it. Israel recovered the bodies of 6 hostages who, according to all the reporting, were killed just before the Israeli army, the IDF. They were, who knows how long, they were very soon to be rescued. And the story is that they were killed, gunshot wounds to the head, just prior to the IDF overtaking their position and recovering their bodies. And that is tragic. To be that close to being returned to family, friends, loved ones, and they were killed. One was an American Israeli. It's what's happened in the wake of that news that has, what happened after those bodies were recovered, is there was something of an explosion of protests all across Jerusalem and major cities like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, with reportedly, across the entire country, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people gathering in the protest I saw. Had to be 10,000 plus. It looked somewhat like a scene from Ottawa's convoy protest against the COVID mandates back in March 2022. And what the protesters seem by and large to be calling for is for a ceasefire, to do whatever it takes to have an agreed upon ceasefire with Hamas so that the remaining hostages, who I think number somewhere 40, 50, something like that, whatever it takes, get a ceasefire so that the remaining hostages can be released, and those that are dead, their bodies can be recovered. And the sticking points seem to be the terms, under what terms would a ceasefire happen. Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, has drawn so-called red lines, like no ceasefire without certain conditions being met. One being monitoring of this Philadelphia. I'm not exactly sure how to say it. It's like Philadelphia. It's the corridor that exists at the southern part of the Gaza Strip, borders with Egypt. And Israel is maintaining, or at least Netanyahu is insisting, that there be a IDF presence in this corridor to ensure that no smuggling of weapons comes in from Egypt But that's another red line for Hamas. They want that corridor abandoned. And so will there be a ceasefire? Will there not? I don't know. Cryptomeria doesn't think there will be a deal. I don't think so either, but for a number of reasons that I'll get into. Daniel had written before that, he said, we need some time away from the craziness, no kidding, to find some semblance of normality. It's what the holidays are for. And yes, that is true. Although, I basically stayed away from, we don't have television, and I don't listen to the radio much unless I'm listening to UCB Canada, which is Christian broadcasting, just for the music. I don't want to hear the news. I don't trust the news that comes out from mainstream sources. But at any rate, getting to Cryptomeria's point that there won't be a deal, I don't think there will be either. But it's as much for political reasons as any other. And the political reasons are that Benjamin Netanyahu, before the attacks of October 7th, he was facing serious charges of corruption and even, I believe, accepting bribes. And if found guilty, not only would he no longer be prime minister of Israel, but there's also the potential for jail time. That's one. Number two, his government is very unpopular right now. I don't think they would not be wiped out. He's not as unpopular as Justin Trudeau. I don't think his Likud party would be decimated. But Israeli politics is it's a pizza parliament. I don't know how many parties there are in the Knesset, which is their parliament building. That's what they call their parliament. I think it's a Hebrew word, Knesset. And I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 seats. I think it's 67, 68 seats. But there are a dozen or so parties sending members to the Knesset. And so getting a majority is pretty much nigh on impossible. No one is going to get a majority. So what has to happen is you have centrist left and right parties. And whoever does win has to cobble together support and form a coalition government. That's the only way that the Israeli parliamentary system functions, is through the formation of coalitions. But the wide expectation is that Benjamin Netanyahu, once this war is over, that his political career could very well be completely over, and that again he could, if found guilty of these corruption and bribery charges, he might even be facing jail time. And many suggest that the motivation for continuing the war with Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthis and Iran and the whole shebang, that his motivation behind it is strictly political, that he wants to prosecute the war and continue it because it ensures that he's able to stay in power. And I tend to lean toward that point of view as well. But he's able to do it under the guise that he's protecting the safety and security of the Jewish people. And to be fair, yes, there were massive protests from all accounts all across Israel, but there are individuals likewise who are very supportive of Benjamin Netanyahu's position. And I can stick my shoes into the feet, can stick my feet into the shoes of those who support Netanyahu, because let's face it, Iran does not recognize Israel's right to exist. Hamas, their charter statement is for Israel to be wiped off the map from the river to the sea. They want Israel gone. And Hezbollah and the Houthis and Islamic Jihad and these militant groups in Syria and Iraq, they all are like-minded in wanting to eliminate the Jewish nation state from existence and to replace it with an Islamic state of some description. Might be called Palestine. I tend to think that if Israel were to lose a war, if they were to cease to exist, that you would see war breaking out between maybe the Jordanians, the Saudis, the Lebanese, the Syrians, the Iraqis, the Egyptians. They might all start fighting one against another to try and capture territory. And it's a messy, messy, messy situation. And all I can see happening is escalation. Either Lebanon, Hezbollah will do something, or one of the groups will attack Israel, or Israel will poke the bear to try and elicit a response so that they can be justified in prolonging the war. So it's going to keep going on. That's my view. Right now, though, things appear to be kind of in a wait and see, kind of in a holding pattern. So we'll see what happens there. I've been checking out recently, I've checked out a couple of videos put out by, I don't even know the name of the channel. It's bigger than mine, but it's hardly anything huge. 5,000 odd subscribers on this channel. And all their videos seem to be labeled, it's one guy like me just talking. But he's going through the data on COVID, and all the videos seem to be labeled "COVID is not over," and he seems to take a malicious, almost a perverse pleasure in stirring up the fear over COVID and citing all the COVID numbers and stressing that COVID is not over, and get a mask on and make sure you're up to date on your boosters, and he loves the term super spreader. We just had Labor Day. He's saying the Labor Day weekend, how many super spreader events are we going to be looking at? Blah, 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 blah. And it just strikes me, but there is a percentage of the population who is addicted to being afraid of any health-related concern. COVID, monkeypox, bird flu, Triple E, Marburg virus X, goodness knows, and it's like they miss the COVID era, that they enjoyed government overreach, they enjoyed government stepping all over their constitutional, and in Canada our charter rights, in the U.S. the Bill of Rights, and I still see storm clouds in that regard. I still think my biggest question is has something happened in the last 3 years or so, say from 2021 forward, has something happened to cause a large segment of the population to have its natural innate immune systems weakened somehow? Is there something been introduced to the broader population across a large swath of the world that is suddenly weakening people's natural immunity? I don't have an answer to that question, at least not one. I'm not even going to express an opinion, not on YouTube, because I get into trouble, get stepped on. But I think you can infer, you can think what I'm thinking, myself personally, my household. We've all been healthy. The only time we got sick was in February of 2022. And none of us did anything that I would suspect would weaken our natural immune systems. And when a bug did move through the house in 2022, it was gone, a 2-3 day nothing burger. But I don't think we've done anything in this household that has weakened our natural immunity. Have others done something that, are there people who have done something that would weaken their own body's ability to fight off viral infections and other things in the last, say starting sometime 2021 or so? It's as much as I can probably get away with saying, without getting stepped on by YouTube and pink-haired fact checkers with their PhDs in gender studies who were censoring, medical experts and Nobel Prize winners and everyone else over the last, several years. If you were Dr. Luc Montagnier, if you were, Dr. Michael Yeadon, former vice president and chief science officer at Pfizer, these are the people who were censored. And me, I'm an easy guy to censor because genuinely I don't have any degrees, I don't have any specialties. But even if I just back then, even if I just mentioned those guys and said I think they have something worthwhile to say, check it out, that video would be taken down. Insane times. On the political front in Canada, Justin Trudeau was recently up in Sault Ste. Marie. He was giving away free donuts steel workers, and one refused to shake his hand and just blatantly said for the cameras, it was fantastic, I don't trust you. And Canadians should not trust Justin Trudeau. He's lied to us on so many occasions, and he continues to lie. He said when he got elected in 2015 that he would run short-term deficits, which became long-term deficits. So that was a lie. And that we would be returning to a balanced budget, which we have not. Even before the COVID era came along, he hadn't returned Canada to fiscal. Our budget was not fiscally balanced. Big surprise. Trudeau has admitted he doesn't think much about it. He doesn't give much consideration to the economy. What a shock. He's brought upon all manner of ridicule because, he says that in Canada, we prefer the word people kind to humankind or mankind. We like we call it people kind or whatever he said. And he's toast. I never, in politics, a month, 2 months can be a lifetime, and we're still a year away from an election, although there is the potential for a no confidence vote to happen after Parliament reopens. Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives are trying to court the NDP because they would need the NDP to pull their support from the Liberals. They call it a supply side confidence agreement, where the NDP has agreed that on any vote of confidence, that they will prop up the Liberal government so that it doesn't topple. The only thing is, I don't think the NDP likely feels strong enough. They're not going to want to, but they're not in great shape to face an election either. And they'd be facing the prospect of a Conservative landslide. And I don't think they're going to want that. So I think they're going to want to play this out as long as possible. I think they're basically in bed with Justin Trudeau. They have the same goals as he does. Play it out and either wait for October of next year, or conversely, keep a close eye on the polls. And if you start to see some momentum going for the Liberals NDP, that then they may pull the plug. And Trudeau may either ask for the legislature to be dissolved, or conversely, at that point, the NDP might join in with the Conservatives and topple them. But then if for whatever reason, if a situation did arise where the Liberals did start to gain some traction and momentum, would the Conservatives then want to topple the Liberals while they have even a little bit of momentum? Open question, impossible to answer. So I quite often forget to put it on live chat instead of just top chat, but doesn't look like I missed anything. Daniel and Cryptomary are the only ones writing in. It's a boring Monday night, and boring is good. And I don't have much else to say, which is nice. It was interesting. I've got my young guy reading the Bible now, and he's never read it. He's read sections like most of us. And we were going through, I've suggested him to read the Gospel of John. And he said, shouldn't I read it all like you did? Shouldn't I read it all? Hey, Virtue Signal Side just tuned in. Hey, John. Hey, Virtue. I'm about to read from the Gospel according to John, which is becoming my favorite Gospel. And he was going over the section. In John chapter 1. And I'm going to start in verse 35 of chapter 1 of the Gospel according to John, because my young guy was asking me about this. And I'm just going to go off the cuff and react to what I'm reading. I haven't read this recently, just we went over part of it today, my little guy and I. He's 10, he'll soon be 11. Heading into grade 6, first day of school tomorrow. Chapter 1, verse 35, Gospel according to John. The next day, again, John was standing with 2 of his disciples, and he looked at Jesus as he walked and said, "Behold, the Lamb of God." The 2 disciples heard him say this, and they followed Jesus. Jesus turned and saw them following and said to them, "What do you seek?" And they said to him, "Rabbi," which means teacher, "where are you staying?" He said to them, "Come and see." They came and saw where he was staying, and they stayed with him that day, for it was about the 10th hour. That would mean the 10th hour after sunrise. So that, whatever, 10, figure sun comes up at 6 o'clock in the morning, so add 10 hours. One of the two who heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first found his brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which means Christ. He brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, "So you are Simon, the son of John. You shall be called Cephas," which means Peter, which also means rock or stone. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee, and he found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now, Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and said of him, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile." Nathanael said to him, "How do you know me?" Jesus answered him, "Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Nathanael answered him, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered him, "Because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? You shall see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. The context, it was interesting in reading this over with my little guy. We talked about a few points about it. Number one is that my youngest, his middle name is Nathaniel, and he was having difficulty pronouncing it. And I said, "What's your middle name?" He said, "Nathaniel." And I said, "That's your name." And it means a gift. It means a gift from God, which he truly is. And the other thing we talked about while we were discussing this passage is that the line where Nathanael says, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" It's written the way it's written in the text. It's just written with a question mark. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? I inject a bit of tone into it because I tend to hear in that those words, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" I hear somewhat a tone of mocking disbelief. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Give me a break. Nazareth is out of the way. You would think that if God was going to show his majesty, his glory, his might, I think this is an expectation of so many of us. We expect God to show up with great power and majesty and might. And in the context of our earthly existence, they would expect a major religious figure to come out of Jerusalem, not some little backwater town in the Galilee region. They would expect someone coming from Jerusalem. And I think in terms of our own expectations regarding God showing up in our lives, we expect the same thing. We want something big, we want something flashy, we want something magnificent. And God shows up each and every day in our lives in ways that are subtle and unobtrusive, and some that we don't even notice. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? You know, if God's going to show up, he's going to show up with boom. And God shows up each and every day in ways we do not expect, in ways we may not even perceive. Just the same way that, and we talked a bit about how Jesus came into the world, not as the lowest of the low, born in a cave or a stable, didn't even have a cradle. He didn't have a bassinet. He was laid into a trough, into a manger, which is where the goats and the sheep and the animals would feed. That was Jesus's cradle. You could not ask for a more humble beginning. And, in this world, we need Christ more than ever. And not just this world, but each and every individual, because it is through him that we find peace, that we can find comfort, that we can even find joy. So I'm going to wrap up my video right now. I'll keep it under half an hour. If you did like it, if you enjoy hearing affirming words and you think that I express them reasonably well or they touch you, one of my favorite books in the Bible, I mention it often, is Ecclesiastes, just because of these words. Ecclesiastes is believed to have been written by Solomon, who's presented as the wisest man, in the Bible, maybe the wisest man who ever lived. People from all over the world. The Queen of Sheba came from deep in the south. Everyone marveled at Solomon's wisdom. And it's believed that when he was a young man that he wrote the Song of Solomon, that in his middle years, so to speak, he wrote Proverbs. And the book after Proverbs is the book of Ecclesiastes, which is also credited by many to Solomon and is said to have been written by him in his later life. And what he said in that book repeatedly is that there's nothing new under the sun. Everything is just vanity. Everything is just chasing the wind. And nothing that I have to say is new. The only hope that I can have is that maybe my tone, maybe the way I frame things, maybe my turn of phrase might be a little different than, and it may just land with somebody at the right time. And it may seep in and it may plant a seed. Cryptomeria brings up another common theme in the Bible, is to put on the armor of God. He is our sword and our shield in this beastly world. We live in a beastly world. We live in a world where, a few short years ago, 2021, 2022, people were losing their jobs if they refused to take a medical intervention that they did not want to take. And in this country, we have a prime minister who lyingly says, I never forced anyone to take it. Coercion is force. To say to someone, well, if you want to work, you'll have to do what I tell you. Otherwise, you do not get to keep your job. That is force. And that is beastly force. That is demonic force to do that to someone. And, getting to Cryptomeria's point, we need to put on God's armor. And when we put on that armor, I think over time we come to realize that this life is not the end, that we are eternal beings, that this vessel that we occupy, this, it's only temporary, and that we are on a journey. We are on our way home to an eternal home. And Jesus said, in my Father's house are many rooms, and he has prepared a place for us. So, hey, Roxy Sorrells, I have not seen you here before. Good to have you on. Hope you're enjoying the content. As I say, getting back to Ecclesiastes again, I have nothing new, but maybe I can just frame it in such a way. The most important thing I think is, I don't want to preach to the choir. I hope there are individuals who are not. We live in a culture that is very much hostile to the gospel good news of Jesus Christ, and likes to put on arrogance and, this earthly wisdom and think that they're above it all and that I'm smarter than those ignorant, foolish, superstitious, myth-believing Christians and religious types. How is it working out? How's this beastly world working out for you? If you're looking for truth, if you're in a world full of lies, in a world that says a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man, I'll share something just for fun. I wrote on my Facebook feed, just for fun. I wrote a fake news article. And what's interesting is, even though it's fake, there are people who thought, I got comments from people who thought it was real. I've got in the description, you can link to my Facebook feed and you can see what I wrote yourself. But it amazed me that there are people who thought this was real. But even as I wrote it, I knew that some would, if I did it well enough, if I put my tongue firmly enough in cheek, that some would believe that what I was writing was real. Oh, come on, my computer's slowing down. Good night to you too, Virtue Signal side. If you don't want to hear this, that's okay. That's all good. Here it is. Here's what I wrote. Canada to affirm the right of men to have an abortion. I dated it August 31st, last updated 12:01 p.m. from the Satirical News Network, brackets SNN. Canada, always striving to be at the forefront of the progressive culture wars, is poised to have its parliament voting on a new motion which will affirm the right of men to access abortion. With the Liberals and NDP supporting the motion, the expectation is that it will pass easily when it is presented to the House of Commons in either late September or early October. Canada, along with China and North Korea, already has the most wide open access to abortion laws in the world. Abortion in Canada is permitted at any time and for any reason, including right up until the moment of birth. And that is true. When asked why such a motion was needed, given the current legal framework, Lucius Deception, the government spokesman for Progressive Insanity, stated, because gender is no longer determined by objective biological reality, the government saw a need to address situations where individuals born as women but who decide that they are men have full recognition of their rights as women. This is not unprecedented. Things like sanitary products for menstruation are now available to individuals born male but who affirm a female identity. So an individual who is born a woman but later chooses to be a man, he can still find himself in a situation where he is pregnant, because men in Canada in 2024 and going forward can get pregnant. The current reality, and this has always been true, is that both men and women can become pregnant. And both men and women who are pregnant require Parliament to affirm their right to reproductive choice. Further reporting will follow when the motion is brought forward for debate. Opposition is expected to come from racists and those who deny science. So I wrote that as an exercise in fun. And I actually have comments down on it where people think that's a genuine news story. Insane. Yeah, but that's the world we live in, where even things that are blatantly insane, people think they're real because reality is insane. This world has gone bat something crazy. So getting back to the word, if you want to make sense of this world, if you want to know right from wrong, know truth from lies, you need to get into God's word. You need to invite Jesus into your heart. You need to lean on the Holy Spirit and pray for discernment so that you can navigate these crazy times. So I'll leave you with that. May the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. And may the Lord grant you peace, you, me, and everyone, and this beastly world that we're living in. And again, thank you for the likes that I've gotten so far. If you haven't signed up to subscribe to the channel, you're most welcome. Help me build get up to that 1,000 mark. Maybe I'll add one or two after tonight. Who knows? Seems to be one or two get added with each video. We'll see how it goes. God bless, and we'll talk to you tomorrow, or won't be too long. Good night.